Hey guys, Ben Paint here, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we are down at Teamsport Bristol once again for a Monday night social, and this is in fact our first official qualifying times for the BIKC in 2023. Now before we get into the full session, as you can see our first lap gets underway here, I would just like to say, if you are new to the channel, can you please hit the subscribe button down below, as it really does help me out and it really does mean the world to me. And if you do enjoy this video or any of the other videos that I make, then please hit the like button as well, unlike Harley, who has flipped us off. So jumping straight into the video straight away, we can see Harley's gone for a really big dive bomb down the inside on me, and it hasn't quite worked, and instead he has had to back out up the ramp. So we are still ahead, and this is obviously a Monday night social event, so we're not actually going for positions on track, we're more looking for pace and consistency and just improving on our times from the last couple of weeks. I thought I wanted to come down to the track and try and iron out a few kinks that I had, but unfortunately I found that some of the karts I used just weren't as warmed up compared to some of the others. So the session you are watching is in fact the first session of 3. My fastest lap was actually in the first session of the night, which I wasn't too sure about. I wasn't really under the impression I would have that fastest lap in the first session. Usually it comes in the last one, but you can see straight away we're not quite on the pace tonight compared to where we usually would be, and that has led to Harley sending an absolutely beautiful move down the inside of us on the upstairs section of the track. We come across the line on this lap with a 40.058. Now down at Bristol we are aiming for a 37-second lap. That's really the ideal sort of times you want to get. 37s, 38s, that's where we want to be, just because that's the most consistent times that seem to crop up in these sort of conditions in the hotter weather when the track's a little bit more gripped up. Now you can see already Harley was pulling away from us there until he made a little bit of a mistake, and this allows me to tag along behind him. You can see me following him through that corner and taking the same line, and you can also see by how much my camera is vibrating through the corners how much Sam Gaskell is being a nuisance and absolutely loading me through each of the corners. So he's enjoying doing that, and you can see my head just every now and again bouncing back, and it really was getting a little bit frustrating. It was making it difficult to concentrate on just following behind Harley, and instead I had to look over my shoulder like that to instead beg Sam to stop loading me, but he carried on anyway, as you will see later into the video. So you can see once again we have set our fastest lap so far, a 39.245. so this is our fastest lap of the session and of the evening so far, and we're just going to look to improve on this to try and get down to a 37-second lap, as I mentioned. So I come across the line on this lap, obviously a little bit quicker once again, a 38.912, which I was really happy with, as we get loaded in the back again. And now we're just trying to solidify and be as consistent as we can. The kart's beginning to warm up now at this point. We're taking some nice clean lines just to ensure that we're minimising the track length, as I always mention, and I was trying to make sure that the kart didn't slide out too much. However, you'll see pretty quickly that I'm being quite erratic with the steering wheel, and that's just because the back end of the kart appeared to just keep being really loose, and you can see it on Harley's kart a little bit there, but the back end of the kart was just deciding to swing round just that little bit too much, causing a little bit of oversteer, and this was leading to me being not as smooth on the application of the steering, which obviously we always want to do. The smoother you turn the wheel, the less the kart slides, the more momentum you will be able to carry through the corner. So on the bottom hairpin once again, just maintaining our time from Harley's kart there. We're not quite catching up to him, and he's not quite breaking away until, as soon as I've said that, he appears to be breaking away a little bit. So I took a little bit of a different line compared to other people through the top section, and clearly on that lap it hasn't quite worked, but there were just a couple of things I was trying to just practice in this session. Obviously this is my first time coming down to the track in a little while, and we just wanted to have a little bit of fun. So you can see we come across the line now at 38.7, our fastest lap of the night so far, and Harley is now called right up to the back of some of the other drivers on the track. So you can see once again there's a little gaggle up ahead of some of the drivers, and we didn't really want to be stuck behind these people for too long, especially if we are going for lap times. So you can see right up behind kart number 19, I believe this is the Dark Lord. He gives us a nice bit of space here. Another driver sort of going quite wide into the corner, and I look for the inside here to try and get past them, but I think better of it and instead decided to slip behind. Still plenty of time left in the session, and as I mentioned, this was the first session of the evening, so I thought I still have 2 more sessions to improve on my times, even though I didn't, which is quite amusing actually. So we're trying to carry on going around here. You can see the driver ahead is a little bit all over the place, and they go quite wide into the corner, and this just leads to me sliding up the inside and taking a position. Now you can see Sam here going past. I give him a little bit of a comment from all the loading. Obviously he didn't hear me, so he's hearing it now. Now we're just going to follow around behind Sam. Obviously Sam's one of the quicker drivers, he's a junior. We want to just follow around behind him and try and use the toe to just sort of drag us around. Now the toe is something that you may think is placebo, but when you're driving around on your own, as I did in the 3rd session, you actually don't push yourself or have as much of a lack of wind resistance against you, which means you just sort of go around a lot quicker. And it might just be a placebo, as I mentioned, where if you're just following around behind someone else, then they just push you to go a little bit quicker instead of just driving around on your own. So here you can see, once again, we are trying to stay as close as we can to Sam, trying to take some different lines. Unfortunately, the inside of my car does clip the outside of the barrier there, and that causes me to lose a little bit of time and momentum. However, he does still have to catch up to the other people up ahead, which I knew was only going to slow him down. So we come across a line there in the toe, as I mentioned, our fastest lap so far of the evening at 38.579, which I was quite happy with for a first session of the night. However, I knew that there was still a lot more to give. You can see Harley going for a double overtake here on Andreas and Charlotte up ahead, which was a pretty nice move, and I'm sure he was pretty happy with that as well. Now you can see Sam's all over the back of Charlotte as well. I didn't even look for the inside there just to try and give himself a little bit more space, but he goes for it on the second hairpin, and that allows me to sort of go through as well. I took a little bump there from Luke Child Maple behind. He just pushed me through the corner, and then this allowed me to just sort of get myself a little bit more room ready to follow along behind the other drivers. Now obviously that lap was a little bit slower at 38.953, not as quick as our 38.579, obviously due to just being in the traffic and having a little bit of carnage. So now we got a nice little train going on. There's 4 of us in a row, and in fact there's 2 more behind me as well. So there's a train of about 6 of us here, and we're all going around together, which is only going to help each other, especially as we're all in close proximity and gaining the toe off one another, as I mentioned. So we're coming down the ramp here, just trying to stay as tight as I can to the first apex, and then try and tuck into the second one, being thrown off a little bit by the 2 guys up ahead, just sort of wasting each other's time a little bit there. But we come across the line with our fastest lap so far at 38.303 second lap, and those lap times are tumbling down now at this point. Now we're getting closer and closer to a low 38/high 37, which is where we want to be, as I mentioned. So we're trying to tag along behind Sam now here, and we'll just take a little bit of a tighter line, not going as wide to try to minimise the track length. Sam goes for a look down the inside of Andreas. Instead I give him a little bit of a tap to try and push him through the second hairpin and maintain the momentum. He looks over his shoulder, and you can see Harley is also just sort of running off into the distance. Now as you can see there, I did go a little bit wide, and I think that's just due to a thing that I do when I'm racing, is I will just stare at the car ahead, and no matter what they do, especially in sort of time sessions, is I'll just sort of follow along behind them, apart from this nice move on Sam here, just sliding up the inside, and then as he tries to go for the undercut on me or switch back, I was able just to hold the inside line there and force him out. So he did make the move past Sam. I thought that it was quite interesting to make a move on him, as he loves to overtake me. So we've gone past him now, and now we're looking to catch up to Andreas. Now this is a good distance behind someone that you want to be in a Monday night social, because they're close enough where you will feel the effects of some toe, but at the same time you're also not too close where if the person ahead makes a mistake, you're sort of going to follow along into the mistake, and you have a target up ahead of you to sort of tag along behind and try and catch. Now you can see through the first half of the lap we have actually begun to catch up with Andreas here, who is one of the newer drivers at the track, and he's also pretty quick as well. So you can see he's in car number 11, which is my favourite number. So I was just trying to follow around behind him here and just put my foot down as hard as I could into the accelerator to try and get on the power as early as possible. You can see how much time I've been able to gain on this lap, and we come across the line with our fastest lap of the evening so far, and I do believe that was our fastest lap of the evening full stop, a 38.214, and you could see just by having that target up ahead of me and having the momentum, I was really able to close up to Andreas really quickly and just even make the overtake done like I just did there. Now you see the driver on the left hand side here, he sort of lets me past, but I think Andreas didn't realise he was going to go so far to the inside, so he tried to sort of follow through on the inside line, and instead he just ended up going into the back of the driver there. So at this point I now had a lot of clear air, there wasn't really any drivers behind me that was going to get the tow, so at this point it is just me flying around for the last couple of laps, trying to put in the best lap time that I can. Now, with a bit of clean air, I thought that I would have been a bit quicker, but as you can see, our fastest lap at 38.214. Unfortunately, in this session, I was just unable to catch back up to it, and I'm not entirely sure why. I don't know if it was the effects of the tow, as I mentioned, or if I just sort of became a bit fatigued or lack of concentration just because there wasn't someone in front of me to try and push towards. Now, I was pushing towards catching up with Harley, or I was going to try to, but I guess it just wasn't enough because I was unable to sort of beat my time at all. So you can see we're getting close to being really consistent at 38.284, which is really important to be as consistent as you can, just because it really aids average overall times, which in a race situation is exactly what you want. You don't want to have one blistering lap times and the rest of them being quite slow, because you just get caught out by other people surrounding you. So you can see Harley's made a move on one of the drivers up ahead, and now I'm looking to try and catch up and do the same. So taking a nice tight line through the double hairpin section, coming down into the last corner, taking it a little bit wider through the first apex, and unfortunately just making a little bit of a mistake there on the second one, and that's caused me to lose a whole heap of time and maybe a couple of tenths, and maybe that would have been our fastest lap of the night if it wasn't for that. But unfortunately instead it was slower by a tenth and a half, so a 38.365 our last lap. So now we're trying to catch up with the driver up ahead. I do believe it's Julian Phone, I could be completely wrong there, but I do believe that's him. Obviously he's another driver in the middleweight category, so I wanted to try and catch up to him as quickly as I could and then try and overtake him, just because at the end of the day he will be one of my competitors. So you can see getting the last corner a lot better this time, and now we're coming on the run down to the start finish straight. You can see a 38.224, so only 100th behind our fastest lap so far, but as I mentioned, we are being very, very consistent, which is absolutely perfect for race pace and overall pace in general. And I see Julian going a little bit too deep into the corner there, and that caused him to slide out, and then he let me go past him, which was really kind of him. So now we're catching up to one of the other drivers here up ahead. Harley's managed to dispatch him, and now we're trying to look for a way past, going a little bit too hot there into the second hairpin, and that leads to me going into and having a face full of barrier, which obviously you don't want, as that really does slow you down. And again, if that mistake didn't happen, maybe that lap could have been our fastest lap of the race, because you definitely lost more than 2 tenths there by slamming into the wall. But here you can see we're right up behind the driver in car number 14. I was thinking about a little move down the inside, but instead I thought I'd get them on the exit coming up the ramp, just by taking more of a deeper line into the corner and then switching the car back. This allowed me to get a better run up the ramp compared to really trying to throw the car in. And again, you can see Sam Gaskell causing a few issues here, and I instead decided to let him pass. Obviously I didn't realise that this was in fact the last lap of the session, so I had let him pass, but as we come across the start finish straight, it does lead to the end of the session. So as always, that does in fact bring us to the end of the video as well as the end of the session. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, can you please leave a like on it down below, as it really does help me out. And as always, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, or if you just haven't already, then please could you hit the subscribe button, as it really does help me out. So again, I haven't plugged it in a while, but my Instagram is linked down below in the description. As always, I hope you've all enjoyed the video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.